And here we go. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning for everyone. Basically, first of all, Happy New Year to all of that are watching us and that will watch us later on. All the best from, I think, from all of us to you guys. And basically, welcome to the first show and first episode in 2025, January. And today I have a big honor to have a really very professional, very experienced, and I would say one of the so far I can say one of the best trainers. Can I say that as a guest tonight? So we have Dwayne tonight, or at afternoon in America, basically in his part. So welcome, Dwayne.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the kind introduction. Thanks for having me. You're going to trigger my imposter syndrome.
Well, I would say it's my honor. To be honest, in the past, when I was starting, I must now be completely honest with you. I mean, I never shared just for the people that will watch later and so on. And for those who are watching, I just want to share that when I was starting the cloud, I was reading here everywhere, Dwayne, because somehow you were famous in my growing skill, in my career, if I may say like that. So I was reading a lot in that period and all that stuff. So again, it's my honor to have you and to finally meet you virtual. I hope soon in person, maybe. But it's really my great honor to have you, Dwayne.
Really, thank you. It's an honor to be here. I love doing these conversations. Are always fun.
Nice. First, I must ask you, what is hyperscaler? I must ask this question. From where the idea for hyperscalers?
So Captain Hyperscaler was a name that was. So I was a product manager for cloud services within a hosting company and managed service provider company. And one of the salespeople, because I was handling, the hyperscalers, I was handling Azure and AWS and Google. I had had a gentleman call, say, "Hey, you're Captain Hyperscaler." And at the time I was, I wasn't a Microsoft MVP yet. I was at the time an MCT, but I was working to, I was thinking about starting a blog and starting to do more community activities. And I was like, oh, I'm going to use that. And so that became kind of my personal brand for a long time. And then when I decided, a little over a year ago to start my own training organization, it was just logical to name it Captain Hyperscaler. All right. It seems Martin's having some audio difficulties, so hopefully it comes back on here and those issues are fixed.
Can you hear me now?
I can. Yes.
Sorry. I catch most of the comment, and then immediately my microphone basically, and I was listening. Sorry to interrupt you.
No worries.
Sorry, these USB cables and all that stuff, the microphone, something get real. Perfect. Okay. So the hyperscaler is coming from there as this and that. So that's nice to hear. I must be honest with you. And basically, what I wanted to say, how hyperscaler aligns with all the latest technologies and AI things that are happening around the hyperscaler, if I may ask like that.
Well, I mean, obviously, the aspect of elasticity and the scaling of technologies is a valid aspect. And when you're talking about like AI technologies and all of the compute power that it needs, obviously, the hyperscalers of Microsoft and AWS and Google and Alibaba or any of the other cloud providers become become a key aspect to anybody that's building any kind of AI based application or blockchain application, because of the enormous compute power. Nobody has, very few companies or organizations have the capital to invest that much into compute infrastructure. So being able to have the hyperscalers at their disposal become very important.
Yeah, and because we mentioned as a trainer, do you get a lot of requests, if I may ask like that, for example, or maybe the question should be, do you see from your perspective how the people align with this AI and all the stuff that is happening, if I may ask like that, in this period?
I think, I think that from a training perspective, a very large portion of the training requests that I get have something to do with AI or OpenAI or ChatGPT or copilots in one way or another. And if I'm doing, if I'm being asked something around security, around data, using like Microsoft Purview and things like that, it's always how do we use Copilot with this, or how do we protect our data from Copilot and ChatGPT and AI and all of those things as well. So it's definitely at the forefront of everybody's conversation. I make a joke, I think, I've made jokes in various other MVP, MCT circles, is, when all of us do community talks and we submit to community events and to conferences and things like that. And the joke, we always joke around that if you want to get admitted, get your talk at least looked at, make sure you have AI in the title and the retrospective for what you're going to present.
Indeed. Also, on top of that, there was, I think somebody mentioned it. Yeah, this conference, we will not mention AI at all. And let's see if we survive this conference, or how many participants we will have.
Let's see if anybody shows up, right?
Yeah. If AI is not mentioned at all. Indeed. Yeah, it's quite funny how big changes are happening and how everything goes. But I hope that everything will align. Also, at my side, I completely agree with you. Everyone is trying, how we can integrate this with that, with the Copilot, with this, with that. So, but it will be really interesting to see this year what it will bring, because the agents are coming and all that stuff. So basically, let's see how everything will go. Because I know that you have a really big experience, if I may say like that. And I must ask you, and to go put you a little bit back in time and ask you how Dwayne started now, when we see AI on this side and you see Dwayne really far away from this century, if I may say like that.
I mean, the interesting thing was, I know a lot, there's a lot of people that have their backstory is, when I was little, I made computers and played with computers and things like that. Interesting thing was, I didn't really have my first computer until I went to university and had just a word processor type computer that did Lotus 1, 2, 3 for Excel documents or Word documents and things like that. But I did, when I was early on, when I was a teenager, my father was worked for the Bell system, which was the telecommunication, which was telephones for years. That was kind of his main thing. He was a service manager for a long time, and he was running his own company that did structured cabling. And so I started doing structured cabling. So for somebody that does so much in terms of cloud technologies and everything like that, I was running, telephone cable, or I was running coax and twinax cable for token ring networks and things like that, like way back in the 80s. And I went to university for business management. I didn't really go there for technology or for CIS or anything like that, but came back while I was trying to find work for my dad, and then got on with a distributor that we were using, and kind of the rest is history from there. I never left the technology world after that. And just like we all need to do, one of the key things that I've always tried to do is evolve with where things were going. For a long time, I was doing client server networks. I was architecting those, but then cloud came about. So I learned cloud and learned cloud security and obviously AI and things of that nature. One thing that I always tell people that I don't do is I'm not a developer. I don't develop applications. I'm more of an architecture guy. Okay. So architecture and security is my realm. And the reason I got into teaching was just one of the things that as I was going through my life was I would be in managing people and training people and teaching and enabling as a subject matter expert on IT services, and just enjoyed paying it forward. And that's really kind of where led me to be a MCT and ultimately also a Microsoft MVP.
Indeed. I must align with your story. I started with the cables, but I started with when they started with the fiber, basically in the city. So that was my first experience. Previously reinstalling Windows and installing applications in that period, I will not count that one. But my really first work experience in the summer, 3 months, it was not voluntary, it was paid job. Now we are switching the infrastructure. It was also telecommunication. And basically you have one beak with the cable, and then you are the guy that is helping to the other guy. Here it is, catch that. Then we go underground, then we go there. And then this RG45, I think it was the cable.
The RJ45, putting the ends on,
cables. Indeed, because in that period also the cable television and all that stuff was starting, in that switching from I would say from your when you started, basically now they switch with this. Basically it's a quite interesting journey. That one, it was really short one during the summer, but I must align with your story that it was really funny, to start really from scratch. This is how it came, the internet and the television at your home via this cable, basically. And I know I have experienced one apartment where we were connecting the internet in that period. Basically, the computer of the kid was not working, so I took a site to format the computer, but the computer was too old, so it was not installed. At the end, I was the person that they were complaining, the guy bring the internet, but our computer now is not working. How we can use the internet? But I was learning at that period. It was Windows 98, if I remember. So you need to put the floppy, format C, and all that stuff. So it was nice experience, but also a little bit tiny, if I may say like that, for myself in that period. But it's funny. It's funny to see. And I can imagine for you also the telephones with it was red and black?
Red and green.
Red and green, indeed. That's what you need to connect and all that stuff.
For those are the original ones, and then we got into Twisted Pair and Category 5 and Category 3 and all those things. So got into the other pairs instead of the red green. What was it? If it was 4, it was red, green, yellow, and black. If it was 4 cable, 4.
True. Did you catch a little bit with configuring a telephony central, basically in the MS-DOS with all of these? For example, Dwayne will be on 100 local, Martin will be on 101 or something like that, or not?
I didn't really get into that. I would do, we would do installations of, well, a little bit. Well, I guess, I see what you're talking about. Central, like PBXs and, the
PBX
phone systems.
Yes. That was
I would do installations of those systems. My dad would do the majority of the programming. I was just the one doing the patching, and the cross connecting to send Martin to extension 100 and,
Yeah,
and all of that.
extension indeed.
Exactly.
We were calling local, because it's a local numbers, and basically everyone can talk with each other in
Exactly.
the
Mhm.
office. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Wow,
we would install and we would move those systems. Always laughed. I grew up in the Baltimore, Washington D.C. area of the United States, and Washington D.C. is a big city. With not a whole lot of parking, and there were times where we took like big, 4x4 plywood boards,
yeah.
and we'd just be walking down the street with a phone system and all the punch blocks on it.
Like the Back to the Future, with the
we would just have to. We'd have, because if we would be moving one business from one building that's only like a block away, putting it into our van and then trying to park again, we'd still be walking probably the same distance, so we would just walk it down the street.
Wow, such a crazy times, if I may say like
Exactly.
that. Wow. That I must ask you, because you were working, and now it triggers me a question, because in 2018 I was doing one migration, and it was quite complex for me from PBX to the Teams telephony. I was doing one migration in my life. Do you have been checking how it works, the Teams telephony and all that stuff? For example, if you need to make difference, how easy it is now in the Teams telephony. Just with 2-3 clicks, you get a number, extension, basically, you get this and that, if I'm asked like that, the question.
Yeah. It's super easy. You very easily can set up like auto attendance and all of those things that, you used to have to actually program it on the keypad of a phone that was like your extension 100, that you would have to program all of that stuff and record all that stuff. Now it's all built into the graphical interface. So I've actually played with that. I've done it did it myself for my own company, kind of just to play with it. I created the teams phone numbers and set up auto attendance and things like that. So very has come a long way, even just from a voice over IP perspective of doing some early voice over IP systems, the ability to maintain the quality of connections and things like that. Definitely much different than it was 10-15 years ago.
Yeah. Indeed, in the past, if there was an error, that means somebody cut the cable, if I may say like that, with the phones. Now it's not the cable, it's basically the configuration itself and all the stuff, which is quite east and west, if I may say, in the differences on troubleshooting and all the stuff. Wow, that's a really long story, if I may say like that, when you start with this, and long journey, if I may call it like that. So you start with the phones and all that stuff. You said you get your first computer at university. Do you remember what was your first game? I must ask you this.
I've never been really a gamer, so
but one game you have in your life, I think, or not?
One of the things when my first gaming system was a Sega Genesis, so it was like Sonic the Hedgehog that I would play with. So, but I was a young adult when that happened. I used to go over to like my friends' houses who had like Activision and their Ataris and things like that, and play like I don't know if you remember Pitfall Harry. It was one of the games that me and my friend always played. So, and obviously Mario, my cousin had a Nintendo, an early Nintendo system. So we played Mario back when you had to like blow on the cartridge to get it to work when you put it into the into the console. So, because any little speck of dust and the cartridge wouldn't seed. And
such a crazy time. So when I think about, basically, I catch Super Mario. For example, the previous I didn't have experience, but I know about them. I have heard from the neighbors and friends and all that stuff. But for example, when I think about how much improvement have happened in the last couple of 20 years, if I may say like that, it's quite a big difference. For example, even to explain now to my kids, to be honest with you, daddy was playing just on one joystick, and basically like the Sony, but it was just only one game. That was it. And the graphical interface were squares, if I may say like that. And it's quite tough to explain all this stuff and how that was done and all this stuff. Oh, funny things. Do you remember your first configuration on your computer from university, if I'm asked like that?
Well, so the computer that I used, in university, it was before Windows. It was just like I said, it was a
DOS.
DOS based computer that I loaded, disks for Lotus 123, which was the essentially word processor and everything like that. After I graduated and bought my first computer, it was a Windows 3.1 computer. So,
Wow.
so yeah,
Wow.
this is like
And how
1993.
is, because you said business administration, you have the computer now. How Dwayne is focusing on the IT, if I may say like that, because you're finishing business administration and now you're guru for IT, cloud technology, security, trainer, all the stuff. Somehow it's a little bit mixed on the beginning. Did you look for yourself, for example, I want to learn this, I want to be this, and all that stuff, if I may call it like that?
It was, I always say it was kind of just organic from that standpoint. Like I said, I worked for, I was born, my dad was in telephony for, 20, 20 plus years. When I was a kid, he had his own company until probably early 2000s. And so I went to work for him, and through working for him, I we bought from a particular distributor for all of our cable and connectivity, our RJ45s and all of that. And he was hiring for kind of their management program. And that's kind of how I got into being into business and into technology simultaneously. And like I said, I've always been one to just continue to learn, continue to try and teach. As I went up through that program, I was teaching others, that were coming in, that were fresh out of college, that knew nothing about technology. I'd have to teach them about technology so that they could talk to customers about what they need for technology. So that's kind of how the teaching started to just organically come about. I just learned that I enjoyed sharing what I know, and so I continued to do that.
Yeah, but what I like in your journey, I must be honest with you, you started really from zero with cables, which now we don't see that, let's be honest. The people just open the laptop and start learning. And basically, where is the router in the company? We don't have an internet, and all that stuff, which triggers a lot of questions, even I must be honest, I finished University of Informatics and Mathematics. I have colleagues that were doing applications 4 years, but they never knew how to format their computer, for example, which is completely, you as the IT, to develop C++, Java, .NET, and that stuff we were learning, but they never figured out how to reinstall their Windows, and they were paying additionally, 10 euros or something in that period. Hey, can you come and reinstall my computer? He has some virus or something like that, which is quite funny to hear this type of stories, if I may say like that. It's quite different, all the stuff. Nice. So basically, starting from that, learning the cables, computer, gaming a little bit, and basically teaching people, of course, how you get stuck in the Microsoft, if I may say like that.
I guess obviously, being somebody that started working on Windows, using Windows computers, using word processors and things of that nature. It to be honest, when I first started getting into cloud technologies, we were heading AWS. But then and then we switched to doing more Microsoft and starting to develop services and that we were going to offer to customers based on Microsoft stacks. One of the first kind of cloud-based services we were working on was like disaster recovery as a service, and Microsoft's Azure Site Recovery was really the only kind of site recovery aspect that any of the cloud providers had. So we started building that. Building for the other hyperscalers, building using Veeam as a method for synchronization and creating some sort of recovery model. But from there, just because we had moved down the Azure path, I decided to start learning Azure. So I started with Azure Fundamentals, started with Azure Admin, Azure Architect, and just continued on from there. And then once I started doing that, then I started looking into being an MCT. And so,
that's
it
nice.
had a little bit to do with the fact that that there was a little bit of uncertainty in my organization at the time too. So I was trying to see if there was an opportunity there, if I got my MCT, to build a little bit more, marketability in myself as well. So it was really more of an investment in myself to learn more about the technologies, and then also continue to kind of take what I know and pass it on, because as I was doing with my organization at the time, was I was teaching people about cloud. I was teaching them about AWS and Azure and Google, mostly AWS and Azure from a foundational standpoint, but I wanted to just take it a step further. And how do I get certified? How do I teach others to get certified?
Because you said in the beginning you never been a developer, and you don't say yourself that you're a developer. Somehow, because you started Azure and the cloud, AWS and all that stuff, did you have done, for example, a Windows Server, reinstalling servers, configuring servers, if I may ask like that? For example, I know Windows Server 2003, 8, Active Directory, or all the stuff?
Like I said, the aspect, and one of the things that that I liked about Azure and Azure certifications was the role-based aspect to it. Because I had evaluated, and I looked at and done a little bit of discovery into like the MCSE aspect of things, the Windows administration aspect of things, Active Directory. And I never was really that level of technical to be able to do that.
Okay, fair enough.
So, and so those, those paths never really, I never had the, not necessarily the ability. I'm sure if I spent the time, but just really the energy to invest in it. From that standpoint, I knew I worked with a lot of people. I learned a lot from the engineers that I worked with that did the Windows administrative type stuff. I got myself a Windows small business server to try and do some of that myself. To just understand the architecture of it all. Because like I said, I was always doing more of the solution architect aspect of things, where I would design it and I would say, okay, what servers do we need for Active Directory, for file server, and things of that nature. And I'd work with my engineers on the how-tos aspect of things. And I learned how to do that from that standpoint. But the actual diving in, building an Active Directory forest and things like that, that was never something that I got into.
But somebody need to align. I completely agree. And that is, it's really tough even now to explain to the people, role-based, it means that you are responsible for this, not for this, but you're just for this. That's your responsibility. That's you. And I agree. And I also like that style, if I may say like that, from Microsoft. Role-based, and it's perfect. If Martin is the architect, if Dwayne is the architect, or somebody's Exchange admin, or somebody, that's their responsibility. That's what they're good at, and basically they are fully take care about that. And completely agree. That's nice. Well, because you started with AWS and basically continue and switching to the Microsoft cloud technologies, so far, if I may ask, as a toughest exam for you, who was the toughest exam from all of them? Because if I ask you easy, it will be easy question for you, and you will say, "Yeah, Martin, fundamentals, admin." That was, because I am aware. I have been. Sorry.
Well, I've said I'm not a developer. I'm not an app developer. I have my developer associate certification. That was probably a pretty hard exam for me. I did some did quite a bit of hands-on training just to understand how to do Docker and things of that nature back when it was done.
Indeed.
So one of the hardest exams I probably ever took was the ISC2 CISSP exam. That's a very hard exam. As far as the cloud-based exams, I haven't taken a whole lot of AWS exams. I have my solution architect associate, but I had been involved in Azure for a long time. And what I did there was I took what I knew around Azure solution architecture and related it to AWS. So, I would say, some of the things that, when I was getting started and getting going, the Azure administrator just not being somebody that was, super hands-on at that point in Azure. That was one of the first paths that I took was after Azure fundamentals was the Azure administrator. So that was probably the hardest at the time. And as I've built more knowledge and things like that, I think a lot of the other exams become a little bit easier to you, because they all start to, you get used to the test taking formats and things like that too, and so that anxiety to some degree goes away because you know what to kind of expect question wise, but then from a technology standpoint, understanding that role, focusing in on that role, I just have become a little bit better, I guess, at test taking and learning, and probably, from teaching, it helps as well in terms of test taking. So I'd really go all the way back to the beginning and say, yeah, my Azure administrative, I had to take it as 2 exams back then too. Back at that time, it was 2 exams to get it. To get that, and then you had to take 2 more to get the Azure Azure Architect. So
it was as a required. Indeed, it was required. It's quite different, and I think they need to change, in my personal opinion, and I think you will agree. Azure fundamentals is completely theory, and on the admin you get hands-on lab, like 12 labs, 12 modules or 10 modules, how many they are, doesn't matter. Basically, you have really click, and the people are, AZ900, it was not like that. Nobody mentioned the portal, nobody said about this and that, which is quite difficult sometimes, even for the people and all this stuff. So completely agree. Okay, that's nice to hear. And what the students are struggling when Dwayne is teaching them?
What's that? What do students struggle with the most? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I mean, it depends. Every class is different. So and it depends on really the level that they come in as well.
But most often question, if I may say like that.
What's that?
What most often question?
The most often question is what are the answers to the test? They always want to know what the easy route is, right? The key to any of these types of exams around around cloud technologies is, once you go beyond the fundamentals, is to get involved and get into the portals, get into working through the various aspects of the objectives of the exam. If you can kind of answer yourself and kind of step through the various components of what's on the exam, you're gonna be successful in the exam. And that, those are kind of some of the things that I always tell the students in the associate and the expert level courses is you got to have some hands-on, because you're going to get asked questions on the exam that are that you need to understand how it's applied, and really that's the key. What is the next step? What do you need to do? So and you're not going to get that from a lecture from me or from a lecture from Martin. You're going to get it from doing hands-on. So we always do the labs. When you take a course, generally you're getting access to a lab environment that you can do the labs more than one time. Do them more than one time. Try and look at the task, and instead of looking at all the steps of the task, try and do it yourself without following along the step-by-step directions too. Gives you a little bit more of a challenge as well, and gives you a little bit more of that technical acumen that you need to know for passing the exams.
Plus the confidentiality to the person, because they now really know how to build all the stuff. So if they solve the labs, it will give that. And indeed, wow, how fast the time is going with you. I have two more questions just to explain to the people that will watch this later, because it's 2:35 p.m. in the place where is Dwayne, basically, and he has still some work to do. We will make a shorter this first episode, basically, just to give time also for Dwayne to finish his work, to do not stay late at work. Work-life balance, we practice in Europe. Dwayne, I don't know in your side, but in Europe, we are focused on work-life balance. Until 5, you need to be finished. So one of the two questions is, what is the goals and the plans for the hyperscaler this year? Is there any new things, technology to learn, something, and so on?
Well, I mean, we already talked about AI, obviously lots around AI security, around using AI appropriately and ethically, learning those things. And, those are a lot of the trainings that I put out there myself has to do with, understanding AI, understanding the risks of AI, understand the uses of it, and understand how you're handling your data and how you are making sure that you are not violating things like GDPR, and and not exposing personal identifiable information and things of that. So I do a lot of conversations, a lot of talks and trainings that have to do with risk and building risk-aware cultures and things. And AI is at the top of that list of making sure that you're doing that.
Do you think we are ready for that risk?
A lot of organizations probably aren't. The IT people understand the risk, but I don't think. I think a lot of at the higher level, there needs to be more awareness around how that's being addressed and being advocated for at the executive level. Definitely.
Agree. Completely agree on that. My second and my last question is, what is your favorite book?
My favorite book?
Yes.
my wife
from
would say
nowhere. This is question from nowhere.
Question from nowhere. For a lot, when I was younger, like when I was early 20s, I was reading a lot of John Grisham novels, like The Firm and things like that.
Yeah.
I've read a lot of Stephen King in the past. So, and then I've read some like sports biographies and things like that, around like Cal Ripken and things like that. Unfortunately, as I've, the last few years, most of my books or most of the information I've consumed has been technology for certifications and things like that. So I haven't read too many books or novels. Probably the last one I did was the last Hunger Games book, because I had gone to see like the part one or I had seen the second movie, and the cliffhanger of the movie really made me mad, so I had to go read the third book. So that was probably the last novel that I read.
Yeah, we watched the movies a couple of times, by the way, and I saw the books a couple of months ago, and I said I will put someday to buy all of them, because my daughter is reading Harry Potter. So I said, let me just buy the Hunger Games, because I really like the movie. And basically, I think I will put on my wish list for this year to buy that. Perfect. Dwayne, I don't know how to say the biggest thank you from bottom of my heart. Thank you for this. Thank you for the time that you put in your agenda for us. Yes. I hope to finish this day very easy, without a lot of tasks and without a lot of meetings. Just finish easy, and basically we will stay in touch, and we will see each other on the next opportunity. Indeed.
Sounds great. Yes.
Have a nice day.
For having me, Martin. Thanks everybody. Appreciate you listening, and have a great day.
Yeah. Have a great day and have a great night. Bye-bye.